The ceasefire between Iran and the US appears all but broken as US President Donald Trump has vowed to continue striking Tehran.
Bulgaria's newly elected Prime Minister Rumen Radev says his country will cease transfers of weapons from its army stocks to Ukraine moving forward. 5 EU countries have proposed instating stricter safeguards for new member states in a bid to avoid deadlocks similar to those experienced with Hungary under Viktor Orban's tenure.
The ceasefire between Iran and the US appears all but broken as US President Donald Trump has vowed to continue striking Tehran, claiming it would pay the price for taking too long to negotiate a deal. The US conducted a series of airstrikes on Iran overnight into Wednesday in response to the downing of a US military helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran responded with strikes of its own towards several countries in the region that host US bases.
So we're going to be attacking them very hard. We'll see what happens with the deal. We were really close to a deal, but they keep tapping us along. They keep playing us for suckers because, you know what? They dealt with some very stupid precedents.
Trump had earlier written in a social media post that Iran was the bully of the Middle East and that it would now pay the price for not negotiating a deal quickly enough. He also repeated a claim he has made in the past that Iran's military was completely defeated following the earlier exchange of fire. He said that a deal would have been in their favor but did not provide details on what the deal would have entailed.
There will only be a diplomatic end to the war between the US and Israel against Iran, a former head of the French military mission to the UN told Euronews, as the conflict reached 100 days.
The Iranians don't care if their people are killed. They don't care if there is a real ceasefire, because they've got now a very powerful government in Iran, because there is no opposition at all. And because of the strike by the US in Iran, is reinforcing the power in Tehran.
Iran and the United States concluded a ceasefire on the 8th of April, mediated by Pakistan, but it has been violated by both sides. Tehran struck American bases in Jordan and Bahrain on Wednesday after Washington launched strikes on Iran in response to the shooting down of an American helicopter.
The declaration by the US of a ceasefire means that it's up to the US to decide if there is a breach or not, because there is no agreement with the Iranians. So we are no longer at war, we are not yet at peace, we are just in between. And each time there is a problem, of course, they use the force.
Iran has stressed any peace deal must include a truce in Lebanon. Israeli and Lebanese authorities have agreed on a ceasefire plan last week, calling for the evacuation of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, but the Iran-backed militia has rejected the deal.
Bulgaria has announced that it will no longer provide weapons from its army stocks to Ukraine as the country's newly elected Prime Minister Rumen Radev called for the pursuit of a diplomatic solution to end the war. Sofia's defense industry is set to remain, however, one of the main suppliers of ammunition headed to Kyiv. Radev stressed the new policy will therefore only affect weapons and munition stockpiles held by the army and government, but that private sector deals remain open. Speaking to reporters ahead of a cabinet meeting, the Bulgarian premier said that his country has, quote, already given enough at the expense of its economic suffering in what he described as a bloody war. The Bulgarian leader, who's perceived as Russia-friendly, has called on Europe to engage in direct dialogue with Moscow in the wake of his campaign, stressing that it's the only way to end the hostilities. He insisted that Russia and Ukraine are embroiled in a war of attrition, adding that no matter how much weaponry is sent, the only cost will be human lives. Bulgaria's defense minister echoed a similar sentiment, noting that both sides need to sit at the negotiating table and come to a, quote, just peace that fulfills both their needs. Kyiv used Ukrainian-made Flamingo missiles to strike a Russian military facility which supplies the Kremlin's forces with components used to produce drones and missiles. In a post on X, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his country is continuing its efforts to target Russian military and oil facilities, their financial and munitions arms, to reduce their assault capabilities on Ukraine. The latest strikes hit the Russian city of Cheboksary in the central Chuvashia region, located some 1,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Regional Governor Oleg Nikolaev confirmed the city had come under attack, noting that authorities are working on determining the number of casualties and extent of damage. The Ukrainian missiles also targeted the Kuibyshev oil refinery, which processes close to 4 million tons of crude annually, supplying a good chunk of that to Russia's military-industrial sector and armed forces. The Ukrainian Flamingo missiles use remains relatively rare since they were developed and unveiled in August 2025. The projectile is classified as a cruise missile and carries a strike range of up to 3,000 kilometers, allowing Ukraine to hit deep within Russian territory, and can carry warheads of just over a ton.
Five European Union countries are urging the bloc to adopt stricter safeguards for future member states in an attempt to prevent problems that were caused by Hungary under Orban. A joint proposal by Germany, France, the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg recommends beefing up accession treaties to allow the suspension of funds and voting rights of new member states if they breach EU principles. Newcomers would also have their veto power restricted to prevent blockages of key decisions. The initiative is a response to the EU's bruising experience with Viktor Orban. The former Hungarian Prime Minister, who was ousted in April, had led reforms weakening the rule of law and vetoed financial aid to Ukraine. Brussels is in the early stages of drafting the accession treaty of Montenegro, the frontrunner on the waiting list. The document is deliberately timed to ensure that the Montenegro Treaty sets the blueprint for the remaining candidates, including Ukraine, Moldova, Albania, North Macedonia and Serbia. While no candidate is explicitly singled out, some references in the paper, such as enhanced transitional periods for the common agricultural policy and cohesion policy, appear to reflect concerns regarding Ukraine's application.
UK leaders are calling for calm after the stabbing of a man in Belfast sparked violent anti-immigration protests where people torched buildings and vehicles and blocked roads. A Sudanese man was arrested on Tuesday in relation to the stabbing attack that was captured in a graphic video that shocked the country. As anti-immigration figures, including Reform Party leader Nigel Farage, demanded details about the attacker's background, the Interior Ministry confirmed he was a Sudanese asylum seeker. Northern Ireland's leaders urged people not to incite hate and fear or target particular communities after reports emerged that protests were planned. Tensions were already high in Britain after violent skirmishes last week in Southampton over the police handling of the murder of Henry Novak, a young white student stabbed to death by a British Sikh man. Tech billionaire Elon Musk chimed in again on social media following the attack in Belfast, retweeting a post by far-right activist Tommy Robinson. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had previously accused Musk of fueling division in Britain over his comments on Novak's murder.
Europe experienced one of its hottest months on record last month under an unusually early heat wave that the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service warned is becoming the new normal. According to the EU's Climate Monitor, May was the second hottest month on record globally, a month that saw Britain, France, Ireland and Portugal break their own records as a heat dome of warm air from northern Africa pushed temperatures well above normal levels. According to Copernicus, globally, the average surface air temperature reached 15.81 degrees Celsius, second only to May 2024. The average sea surface temperature was also the second highest on record, behind May 2024, as conditions shift towards the warming El Nino weather pattern. Forecast warned that the coming El Nino could be one of the strongest on record. Last week, the World Meteorological Organization warned El Nino has an 80% chance of developing between June and August, increasing the risk of extreme weather events.
What if walls could still talk? In the Vosges Mountains of Alsace, the kitchen of the former Nazi concentration camp at Natzweiler Struthof is currently undergoing archaeological excavation. Between 1941 and 1944, 50,000 prisoners were forced to work here. It was in this long wooden barrack built by the deportees that meals were prepared. Today, the building is being studied and restored with a view to its future opening to the public.
L'objectif, c'est que les visiteurs puissent rentrer dans ce bâtiment, découvrir son histoire et mieux appréhender la vie quotidienne, la survie quotidienne des déportés.
The kitchen block was looted after the war, leaving almost nothing inside. Among the few objects found, a small glass vial, a few buttons and a comb. Archival documents have also revealed that inmates may have hidden objects in the walls.
On n'a pour l'instant rien trouvé, mais c'est possible que dans une pièce, derrière une des cloisons, on trouve des objets cachés. C'est un peu une des attentes du chantier et donc c'est à suivre dans les prochaines semaines.
The wooden planks that make up the walls of the barracks will be carefully removed and numbered for restoration. They will then be reinserted in their original position.
Aujourd'hui, avec la disparition des derniers témoins, des derniers déportés, c'est ces traces, ces lieux, les lieux de survie, les lieux où les déportés ont vécu, qui vont survivre à la disparition de ces personnes. Et c'est vraiment important aujourd'hui de conserver pour les générations futures, pour transmettre cette histoire auprès des générations futures.
Restoration of the site is scheduled to continue until the end of 2027 before it is opened to the public as a memorial site.